It's time for another action cam comparison. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but since DJI recently released their latest Osmo Action 5 Pro, we thought you deserve a fresh new video. This time we're putting the new Action 5 Pro against the Action 3 and the Action 4 to see if the new model is really worth upgrading from the older versions. We took a deep dive into the lens, stabilization, features, battery, and much more to put them to the ultimate test. Hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com, and let's get this action-packed video rolling. Before diving into the cameras themselves, let's take a look at what's inside the boxes for all three models. Each comes with a battery, a USB-C to USB-C cable, a protective case, some stickers, and an adhesive mount. These mounts differ slightly. The Action 5 Pro and Action 4 include smaller, square mounts, while the Action 3's mount is larger and rounder. Additionally, the Action 4 and Action 3 boxes include lens rubber bumpers, whereas the bumper on the Action 5 Pro comes pre-installed on the camera. Unique to the Action 4, there's also a lens hood included. Alright, the physical differences between these cameras aren't really that big. They all have the exact same size, form factor, and have the same weight, making them super pocketable. Equally, they all use the same magnetic quick-release mount system. The only noticeable differences are in some materials, the speaker grille, and the power button design. All three models have front and rear touchscreens. In the front of the Action 5 Pro, we find an OLED screen, while on the Action 4 and Action 3, we find IPS displays. On the back, the Action 5 Pro features a new OLED display, unlike the LCD screens on the Action 4 and Action 3. This upgrade also enables an always-on display function, allowing you to view useful information at a glance. The Action 5 Pro screen is also slightly larger, measuring 2.5 inches compared to the 2.25 inches on the older models. In terms of brightness, the Action 5 Pro stands out, reaching up to 1000 nits. In comparison, the Action 4 and 3 max out at around 700 nits, which can make a noticeable difference in very bright conditions. Moving on to the cameras, the Action 5 Pro has a sensor that's the same size as the Action 4 at 1/1.3 inches, while the Action 3 has a smaller 1/1.7 inch sensor. Even though the Action 5 Pro and Action 4 share the same sensor size, the one in the Action 5 is actually new, effectively being 40 megapixels, while the Action 4 has 10 megapixel and the Action 3 has 12 megapixel. All cameras share the same field of view of 155 degrees and an aperture of f2.8. But enough talking, let's get into how these cameras actually perform, starting with video quality. In this first clip at 30 FPS, you can immediately see that the Action 5 Pro has made big improvements in highlight handling, controlling the harsh light on my face effectively, especially as I move closer to the camera. When we zoom in with a 300% crop, the 5 Pro and 4 deliver a softer but more pleasing look, though the difference from the 3 isn't huge. At 60 FPS, sharpness drops just a little, but all three cameras still produce solid footage. Once again, the Action 5 Pro stands out with better dynamic range and white balance. On a 300% crop, the 5 Pro and 4 pull ahead of the 3, though at this point it's more of a nitpick. Now at 120 FPS, the differences between the cameras really start to show. The 5 Pro performs the best, but DJI could still improve its highlight handling. A 300% crop shows that a lot of detail gets lost in the brighter areas, so there's definitely room for improvement here. Both the Action 5 Pro and Action 4 offer log recording. This mode captures a very flat but large video file packed with data, making it perfect for color grading in post-production to achieve results like this. It gives you the flexibility to either match the scene's white balance accurately or just get creative with your edits. The Action 3, however, completely lacks this recording mode. All of these cameras let you choose between 3 field of view modes: Standard, which is the narrowest, Wide, which captures way more content on the sides, and Ultra Wide, which gives you an almost fisheye effect. When it comes to aspect ratio, you have the option to film in 4:3 or 16:9. The Action 5 Pro is the most flexible, allowing you to film at up to 4K 120 FPS in a 4:3 aspect ratio. Meanwhile, the Action 4 and Action 3 are capped at 4K 60 FPS in 4:3, but they can record at up to 120 FPS in a 16:9 aspect ratio. Now, when it comes to stabilization, you can turn it off entirely if you want, but that of course results in extremely shaky footage. With DJI's rock-steady stabilization, things get, well, steady, though you might still notice a slight tilt to the sides. Turning on Rocksteady Plus takes stabilization to the next level, but at the cost of a narrower field of view. With this mode, the only major noticeable camera shake is solely from footsteps. Additionally, you can choose horizon balancing to keep the horizon steady with a maximum tilt of 45 degrees. On top of that, there's also horizon lock, which keeps the horizon perfectly stable even if you rotate the camera a full 360 degrees, so it's perfect for roller coaster rides. While it's ideal to use a dedicated microphone with these cameras, all three of them feature 3 built-in microphones with stereo recording. We figured you'd want to hear how the audio sounds straight from the cameras without any extra gear, so here's a sample for you. So starting with the audio coming from the Action 3, what do you guys think? How do I sound over here? Next, we're moving on to the Action 4. Is it any better at all? What do we think? Finally, we have the latest and newest Action 5 Pro. Has the audio improved here? What do we all think? Let's discuss it. As we heard, there aren't any huge differences between the models. If anything, the audio from the Action 3 is slightly quieter, but honestly, it's not a dramatic difference. Along with videos, you can also snap some photos with these cameras. That said, we have to admit, photos aren't really their strong suit. In this nature photo, all the images look quite similar. The Action 3 and Action 4 deliver nearly identical results, while the Action 5 stands out with higher saturation and better control of highlights and shadows, giving it a more true-to-life look. In this next indoor photo, the improvements over the years are pretty obvious. You can see how exposure handling gets better with each device, and it's clear that the Action 5 Pro stands out with the most accurate color, exposure, and sharpness. When it comes to night photos, the Action 5 Pro shows clear improvements in white balance and noise control. That said, the Action 3 and Action 4 arguably capture a more authentic night ambience, though both struggle with significant noise. Additionally, these cameras come with other cool features for creating engaging content, like the new subject tracking mode. As the name suggests, it tracks a person in the frame while the camera stays still, zooming in and out and panning to keep them in focus. Just keep in mind, this mode only lets you film in up to 2.7K and 16:9. While it's a handy feature, there's definitely room for improvement, as the subject sometimes gets cropped at the edges. To test slow motion performance, we started with 4K resolution at 120 FPS. While neither device excels, the Action 5 Pro stands out with clearer footage, better exposure, and more accurate colors. In contrast, the Action 4 struggles with underexposure and excessive sharpening. All models also support 240 FPS, but only at 1080p, which naturally results in a significant drop in quality. Each device has its specific shortcomings. The Action 3 suffers from over-sharpening, the Action 4 from underexposure, and the Action 5 from blurriness. Overall, in our view, none of these videos produced are truly usable. All three cameras let you record time lapses at various speeds and qualities, making them perfect for capturing sunsets, sunrises, or high traffic areas. The footage quality is sharp across all three models, as you can see here with the Action 5 Pro offering a more HDR-like look to the video. Another really cool mode, and one of my personal favorites, is Hyperlapse. It creates a short time lapse of whatever highlight you're pointing at, but just keep in mind that you will need to walk backwards for the second half of the recording. As you can see, the Action 5 Pro has made big improvements here, offering much better dynamic range in the shadows. In this second example, you can see once again that the Action 5 Pro captures way more detail in the shadows while keeping the highlights well under control. At night, it's immediately clear that the Action 5 Pro does a much better job filming in low light conditions. While the footage still has some noise, it's a noticeable improvement over its predecessors. The Action 5 Pro also introduces a new night mode called Super Night. However, we noticed that in very dark areas, this mode actually performed slightly worse than the normal mode, adding a lot of overly smoothed noise. All in all, the video quality of the Action 5 Pro shows noticeable improvement, especially when it comes to taming highlights and capturing shadows, areas where the Action 4 and Action 3 struggle quite a bit. That said, the dynamic range on the 5 Pro can sometimes look a bit overdone, particularly in terms of saturation. One thing we noticed while recording is that the Action 5 Pro powers on instantly after pressing the power button, while the Action 4 and 3 take about 2 to 3 seconds to boot up. Also, the record button on the Action 3 is a bit harder to press, which sometimes made us second guess whether we'd actually started recording or not. When it comes to batteries, the Action 5 Pro has a 1950 mAh battery, while the Action 4 and Action 3 have 1770 mAh batteries. It's important to note though that the battery on the Action 5 Pro, apart from being bigger, is also a lithium-ion battery compared to the lithium polymer on the old models, meaning that it can store more energy and also offer greater longevity. To give you an idea of these cameras' battery lives, we set them all up to record a 1080p video at 30 FPS simultaneously. Surprisingly, the Action 4 was the first to run out of battery, lasting just 1 hour and 48 minutes. Next was the Action 3, which held on for up to 2 hours and 30 minutes. The longest lasting camera was the Action 5 Pro, clocking in at an impressive 2 hours and 52 minutes, almost 3 hours of continuous recording. Of course, battery life will ultimately depend on how you use the camera and the quality settings you choose for your videos. On a side note, we did notice a weird bug with the Action 5 Pro while charging. The touchscreen becomes completely unresponsive until it's unplugged. Our camera is running the latest firmware, so hopefully a future update will fix this. For what it's worth, both the Action 4 and Action 3 don't have this issue. When it comes to storage, the Action 5 Pro introduces a neat feature: 64 gigabytes of built-in storage. While it's not a lot, it's a handy addition. Plus, you can expand it with a micro SD card of up to 1 terabyte. On the other hand, the older Action 4 and 3 require you to pop in an SD card before you can use them. The Action 4 supports up to 512 gigabytes, while the Action 3 is limited to 256 gigabyte micro SD cards. The DJI Mimo app is available on the App Store for iOS, but for Android, you'll have to download and install an APK from the DJI website since it's not on the Play Store, which could be a bit tedious if you're not very tech savvy. As for the interface, all three cameras are very similar, with only a few settings moved around. Overall though, everything is easy to find and navigate. Finally, for the retail prices on DJI's official website, the Action 5 Pro is priced at $349, the Action 4 at $209, and the Action 3 at $199 for their standard combos. All in all, the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro is a solid upgrade, bringing some great improvements over its predecessors. With updated OLED screens, a new lens, built-in storage, and impressive battery life. That said, it does come at a price. At $349, it's $140 more than the Action 4. If you can afford it though, we'd say that the Action 5 Pro is worth it, as it performed the best in our tests compared to the Action 4 and Action 3. Let us know in the comments which one of these cameras fits your needs best, and keep an eye out as we've got a new GoPro camera comparison featuring the new GoPro Hero 13 Black coming very soon. But before you go, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and hit subscribe if you haven't already, as we're always testing out new devices to help you make the best choices for yourself. Links to all of the devices mentioned in the video can be found in the description below, and we'll see you in our next video. Until then, take care.